Patrick Kindlon has been an interesting figure for me as soon as I discovered Self-Defense Family almost a decade ago, and that interest has grown with his variety of projects, the Extra Grind podcast, Drug Church, and his ongoing work in the comic industry. Alongside Tim Beck of Just an Insight podcast, I had the pleasure of picking Patrick's brain for almost an hour. Enjoy.
Sat once again in the Joiners, seems to be my second home these days, with Drug Church, the self-defense vocalist, and one of the hosts of the hardcore podcast, Extra Grind, Patrick Kindlon. Patrick, thank you very much for joining me. On tour at the moment with Drug Church, how's the show's been so far? Pretty much everyone's been sold out so far, haven't they?
Quite a few sold out. Very surprising. I don't mean to low rate us, but that's not what we anticipated.
Yeah.
The rooms aren't. We're not playing Wembley Stadium, so but it's still a nice vote of confidence when you sell out a decent sized room and people are enthusiastic. So truly, so far so good. We'll see. Europe, the numbers are not as strong, so we will see. Maybe Europe hasn't caught on or is never going to like us. We'll find out. But so far, the UK is very supportive. I thought.
Any particular highlights?
Last night we finally played a venue that, where were we? Bristol.
Yeah.
Where stage was high for a small room.
Was it the Exchange?
That's right.
Yeah. That stage was weird.
High for a small room, but that's a very uncomfortable scenario if people aren't having a good time. Like if the room isn't full or
you're kind of up on a pedestal.
Right.
Yeah.
And if my voice is shot, we've all been quite sick, so if the crowd was not having a good time, they all would have just been watching me fail. And that might have been uncomfortable, or it might have taught me something about myself, I don't know. But they did enjoy themselves, they did go off, so it was a lot of, I won't say good stage dives, they were quite bad, but there was a lot of stage dives. And to me, that is becoming how I gauge a good show, because I have a theory, and you test me if I'm wrong here, but if a guy in a Hatebreed shirt with a forked beard punches you in your face,
that's not a good thing.
Nah, you might not carry a great memory of it. But if a 120-pound kid accidentally kicks you in your head while stage diving, you have a more positive overall experience and memory of that experience. So I don't actively discourage dancing. I just try to hella encourage stage diving, just because it seems like a good compromise on, hey, we're still doing something hella stupid, but at least nobody's gonna get like a broken jaw.
Yeah.
So and that has been, there's been some stage diving on this tour. Again, not the best form, but a lot of people are having a good time. Fuck it,
I think I saw a video of Blondies in London. That looks pretty
Oh, that was... Is that out yet? So far... Oh, God. So that was a nice... We watched the videos. That's the K-Pit, which is a thing Kerrang does.
Yeah.
And when I get emails, or when the band I'll be honest, I don't respond to emails. When the band gets emails and somebody reads them, and across the room goes, "You want to play the K-Pit on a day off?" I don't even think about it. I just go, "Yeah, sure." I didn't know what the fuck the K-Pit was, and I didn't realize until I got there. But we watched, that's not true, I didn't know what it was the night before, because we watched videos of other bands doing it, and didn't love all of them. A lot of big bands actually do it, and not all of them seem entirely comfortable in a bathroom-sized
Yeah, because it's like 50 capitals.
Yeah,
it's very small.
That's I would call that a charitable estimation of how many people are supposed to be there. But really nice. The people responsible were really, really nice, and we it was quite fun. I feel like we might have had a slight advantage over the big bands in that we have probably played a space that small within the last couple of years. So it didn't feel that weird. But my voice was, that was the height of my sickness. So I think I'm not looking forward to listening to the audio. But it was a good time.
Cool. I don't want to tread on your toes too much, but one thing that I kind of like to start off, but we've kind of been going for a little while anyway. The show that I do is called Just an Insight, so I like to take my guests back to kind of their roots. So what was your kind of first exposure of alternative music?
I wonder how badly I'd date myself if I tried to think of what was on MTV at that time. I think I'm probably dating myself by remembering that MTV is a thing.
No, not at all.
I don't know. Did I see Longview on Much Music or MTV? I probably did, almost certainly, right? Because I thought about it the other day. I saw the video the other day, that Green Day video, and I remember so distinctly the pimple that he had because it makes quite an impression, you know?
Yeah.
So probably that sort of thing, but then the first show I went to, the first type of guitar music show, there might have been a local show, but I always flip these and I don't know which is real. But I did see the band Warzone right before Rabies passed away, and I was fairly young, and it made a distinct impression. And then it was kind of off to the races from there. Going to a number of local shows, almost all hardcore stuff. I know that some people claim to have like a very wide teen sort of experience where they went to all types of shows.
Yeah.
I didn't really. I was listening to all types of music because I started listening to music by going to the library. So. Does that date me? I don't know. Is the libraries dated? You still got libraries, right?
Yeah. Not many people go anymore. But.
Well, when I was a kid, my family wasn't into music, and I went to Catholic school, and there wasn't too many people into music there. And so when I was a kid, I would walk down to the library, which wasn't far from where I grew up, and I would just get CDs, take them out based on the cover, on the album art.
Yeah.
Which still, you know, some of those things really inform my taste to this day. You know, I still really love Rush, and that's definitely because the album art looked cool to a 12-year-old. You know, like, oh, this is cool. But I didn't. You know, it wasn't like anybody was taking me to Rush as a kid. You know, my father likes Sinatra a little bit, and my mother doesn't really listen to music, so there wasn't much access in that way. But as a teen, started going to hardcore shows, and I mean, maybe we can say that depending on your perspective, either ruined my life or enriched it, whichever, flip a coin. But yeah, that's. So probably, I always say that the ones that made the strongest impressions on me were Warzone, because it was really the first time that I'd seen somebody on a stage, sweaty, really, you know, really just full interaction with the crowd. Really a kind of a eureka moment. And then I always point out Sick of It All, maybe a year later, as making a massive impression, because it was the first time that I'd been going to shows, but everybody was so serious and so melancholy or kind of stern. And that's not really It's not really Lou from Sick of It All. It's not really the band's
No.
vibe. That band is, they're now in their 50s and they're really still having a very good time.
Literally went and saw them 2 weeks ago, and I think before they'd even started a song, Pete had done 6 laps of the stage. So.
Yeah. So that band, even when they're singing about things that are serious to them or heavy topics, they're in between songs. They're having a great time. They're joking. They're having a good time because, particularly, I mean, if you're gonna do something as your career, if you're not having a laugh with your coworkers, you probably, every night you're like staring at the ceiling fan, being like, could this support my weight if I wanted to hang myself? So that band made a huge impression on me by just keeping it light, having a good time. And I realized that you could joke with the crowd, and that made a huge impression on me. They smiled. And then in my very early 20s, maybe 19, I saw Lungfish, and that made quite an impression on me as well. I don't care for fake weird.
Right, okay.
It's very off-putting to me. Real weird tends to hang out at the bus stop and talk to you about aliens and shit. That's like that's like real weird, right? But like fake weird is like
you're trying to be kooky, sort of.
Every 19-year-old, everybody who hasn't fashioned an identity of their own yet is like, but still would like to feel like an individual. And that's totally fine for very young people. It's less flattering on people who are a bit older, but I don't care for it. But Lungfish was like this perfect thing to me because it was weird in exactly the measure that I understood to be legitimate. and it did not attempt to oversell what it was. They would do Buddy Holly covers. They were a rock band. But they just happened to have a couple odd people in the band, and that made quite an impression on me too. So those I would say are my 3, like real deep imprinting bands.
And if somebody was to kind of like take you on sort of face value from literally just your band, so Self-Defense and Drug Church, then not necessarily kind of the heavier end of scale of sort of alternative music, but you are very much embedded in the hardcore world. So if people maybe not necessarily know that about you, when you have the conversations, like you say, sort of mentioning Warzone and Sick of It All, your history about hardcore, does that come as a shock because people maybe think that you'd only be into the kind of music that you play?
So I think sometimes for me it's like I'm not just a grown man, I'm quite a grown man now. You know what I mean? Like I have gray hair, so like the idea that I could still get touchy about somebody, like I remember being 23 and no, maybe I was a little bit older, but I was playing in, it's whenever Self-Defense was end of a year and we had just started, and locally we were much softer than everything else, but I still felt quite clearly playing hardcore music. It was just Revolution Summer ripoff music. I still perceived that to be hardcore. So one of the locals had commented that we weren't a hardcore band, blah blah, and I remember feeling very offended. But as a guy with gray hair, I don't know if I can. It wouldn't really be flattering if I. So I can't. I don't think I'm coming from a place of defensiveness when I just say that it. Okay, let me put it like this. I don't think hardcore is so cool that I need to hitch myself to it for cool points.
Right.
I think it just, at this juncture in my life, is unavoidably the thing that I have been most entrenched in for longest.
Yeah.
And so I often still see my bands as hardcore acts, even though sonically, clearly they are not. But it's also some of that is relationships and points of reference. So, for example, Self-Defense Family spent most of our recording career on Death Wish.
Yeah,
that's largely a hardcore label. That does not make us a hardcore band, but the reason that I always felt quite comfortable there is that's run by Jake and Trey and managed by Rich Rossi, and all of those people are people that I know them as individuals, but I also know that type of person. I was comfortable working with people. I was comfortable working with hardcore kids. It was what I was familiar with. I tend to still accidentally see my bands as hardcore acts. So when people tell me, or when people are surprised, I remember actually in the UK, I met a kid who was truly shocked that I knew any hardcore music, and I wanted to say, like, I look like a shitty old. I mean, I have a faded tattoo on my neck. It's not like I got it to jump in on the metalcore boom or SoundCloud fucking vibe. You know what I mean? I'm at this, like, if I had the tattoos that I have, and I wasn't a hardcore kid, what would you assume I am? Like a drug hustler, like kind of maybe a failed crust guy. So I am kind of surprised when people are surprised, but look, there's a running joke on Axe to Grind that I have a beef with Fucked Up, right?
Yeah.
Because the singer pretended not to know who I was. The joke is that's like a joke beef, right? But like that idea, well, that's very kind of you, thank you. But that idea that I should it plays into this feeling that I do occasionally have, which is, how the fuck do you not know me? You know what I mean? Not that I'm cool, not that like you should think I'm cool. I'm not asking you to think I'm cool. I've just been around a lot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, seems like if you were a dude, you know who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
But that's the joke, is that's very unreasonable. You know what I mean? So like when I meet some young person, they don't have to be young. When I meet somebody that is surprised that I have the background or points of reference that I have, I just of course I just take it in stride. It's not, why should anybody know me?
Yeah.
Why should anybody know me really? Just because I put out 200 records and you'd have to not be any sort of fan of hardcore if you didn't know me? Okay, fine. But that's fine. So like I said, I'm occasionally surprised, but I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Cool.
It's a little, frankly, it's a little self-aggrandizing for me to be surprised.
I don't want to dominate, so if you got...
I was just going to say, with that in mind, kind of what's kept you in all of this for so long?
Jesus, if I know. I've meant to reflect on this because obviously paradigms change, cultures shift, subcultures shift. Hardcore in particular is not, even less so than punk, certainly less so than metal, just have no fucking interest in old people. And it's changing a little, like Europe, UK shows a little bit more respect to the older acts, but it's a youth culture, sort of, and I think about it quite often, about, like, in some small way, by sticking around, by doing things like the podcast, by continuing to play hardcore shows on occasion, am I I'm going to say something fucking, now we're going down a hole because I'm going to wrestle with myself for a second. You can listen as I wrestle with myself. Am I contributing to a culture in a positive way where I am in, perhaps I would argue, pushing it to a more holistic place where it's not simply about 19 to 25. It's not simply about 17 to 26 if you're lucky, maybe. I don't know. It's about a craft. It's about a type of, for some people, business behavior. For other people, sort of a stage ethic. To other people, like these things that are kind of on some level intangible or ineffable, at least. And am I contributing to an acceptance of people over 30? I mean, that would be, maybe that's self-aggrandizing, but sometimes I think, yeah, I hope so, because culture gave me something. I almost said a lot, but it gave me something, and maybe my contribution to it back is that it doesn't have to be so narrow. But then the flip side, of course, is if I'm being frank with myself, I don't know. Then I have to get all weird kind of dorm room argument about it and say, why the fuck do I give a fuck about culture? You know what I mean? Maybe I don't, So because I don't give a fuck about the larger culture. I don't give a fuck. There's a stopgap in my thinking that says culture is just the expression of the dominant paradigm with some residual ritual from before. And why do I give a fuck about that? And okay, that's true too. So now I'm wrestling with myself. But the other way to look at it is also just the counterpoint to me spreading old man culture, which is maybe some things are best as they were designed. Maybe some things do not need my tinkering, maybe hardcore as a youth culture is a perfect thing. In some people's view, it really is, In some people's view, it is about getting in and getting out. It's about what it teaches you. Some people treat it, honestly, maybe like finishing school or something, where it's here's some lessons that I take into my larger life, and it's not about maintaining a culture that you're actively a part of, So that's an argument too. I don't know if this answers your question at all. I personally just, I guess the tragedy or the I guess you could say the broadly speaking, the positive here is that I still continue to enjoy it. Like, I went to a fucking show the other day, and basement shows, like being the guy with gray hair at basement shows, I suppose you can feel away, I suppose, Not as much in the UK as not the UK and Europe. I've had people that play in Crass come to my shows. I've had people that played in Larm come to my shows. So there is not as much a stigma against age here, for sure. But I would say that I feel comfortable. I still feel comfortable. Maybe that's some Arrested Development on my part. Maybe there's a Peter Pan-ish aspect, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, there's... I guess the part of it that kind of takes me out of that is that I still enjoy checking out new music. So somebody that fell in love with hardcore punk music when they were 17 tends to hang on to those bands most strongly, and I do that too, the bands that you're first exposed to that make you love the type of music. But I'm really open-hearted. Make me love something new. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that might be a little bit of difference between myself and sort of a, more broadly speaking, a pure nostalgia, or pure I'm comfortable here because it's music I recognize, because I'm totally content to have it be unrecognizable to me. You know, I haven't taken the plunge into sort of new punk, like when people try to sell SoundCloud rap to you as the new punk. I understand the argument. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it actually, let me put it like this. I wasn't there. To me, it feels quite a bit like punk, like actual punk, where it's a product and it's just a lot of people jumping on a product, and it will be a couple years before you start getting either the Clash, who was the best product, you know, or you get Crass, the response to the product. You know, it'll be a couple years, you know, and obviously rap's been around fucking 40 years, but I'm saying this new-ish sort of everybody's in their basement making this right now. That sort of thing, I think it's going to be a few years before it dials in its own hardcore, its own grind, its own, you know, like things that have their own ethos, and one of those might appeal to me. Right now it's too much of a fucking product mess, but
Okay.
but yeah, long way is telling you something.
I was gonna say, again with the that you said about the age, do you reckon with stuff like Hate 56 and more, I don't know, almost more documentation in hardcore, there's a shifting of the age demographic?
So I can't really say. I when I went to shows as a kid, there was kids. I don't see that at a ton of hardcore shows anymore. Some cities are better than others at it, but for the most part, it's not a lot of 16-year-olds, it's a lot of 24-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at a 24-year-old, have a good fucking time. But and certainly the chance that I'm going to relate to a 24-year-old is better than me relating to a 16-year-old. So I'm grateful that a 24-year-old is there. You know what I mean? I'm grateful that a 30-year-old is there. But the demographic, I think, is only going to shift up unless something changes. And again, that's cool for me because I'm just aging. You know what I mean? I'm not getting any younger, but I think it would also be cool if there was a demographic shift back to young. But it's hard to keep those people in the same room. There's very few things in this world that unite 16-year-olds and 40-year-olds. And frankly speaking, aside from maybe food and shit like that, maybe that's how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Maybe that those two people are not supposed to be enjoying exactly the same things. I couldn't say, but there's that argument, certainly.
Yeah. Feel free.
Kind of coming back around to where we are today, obviously on tour with Drug Church. Obviously, the album came out sort of last year, and previously, obviously, Self Defense, I think, and I mean this in the nicest terms, was very niche in terms of what.
Still very niche.
Yeah, but when you kind of started Drug Church, a lot of people were kind of like, "Oh, this is different from." Obviously what people were expecting from you personally. Obviously the other guys maybe not so much, but was there kind of, and is there still like a crossover from self-defense fans that came across initially and have stuck with it? Because I think now, especially after Cheer, there's two very different lanes for both those bands.
So that's a good question. I've been trying to keep inventory of it on this tour. Corey, would you do me a favor? Would you close? I know it's annoying because people are going to be knocking. Would you close that door, though?
Close this door?
Close that door for me.
There's no door.
Downstairs there's no door?
Oh, downstairs?
It's
closed, but...
Oh, it's closed? All right.
Very thin walls.
No wonder everything's so fucking cold.
Keeping inventory.
Oh, I've been trying to take inventory of that. Based on who approaches me, you know, a lot of people tell me that because the last Self-Defense record, it came out the same year as the last Drug Church record, and a lot of people are kind enough to come up and tell me that those were their 2 favorite records of the year. So presumably there's plenty crossover, but I also do see young people that I'm sure have no interest in self-defense at the shows now, and Cheer definitely brought in a new group of people. So I don't know. I've been trying to pay attention to that because it is interesting to me. Certainly, I think more self-defense fans probably enjoy Drug Church than Drug Church fans enjoy self-defense.
Right.
Would be my guess. Self-defense can be pretty not challenging. It can just be difficult to approach. You know?
Yeah.
Where do you start? I don't know. so but I've. If anybody has an answer, they can write us. I couldn't say. I've been trying to keep track of it on these tours. Certainly, in the United States, there's like an interesting mix of people who seem to know me from all 3 things that I do. You know.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if these guys realize it or not, but there's people that yell something for the podcast most nights. You know.
What, spell it out?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! That's so good.
So. There's definitely some crossover to at least 2. There's a triangle of some type, you know what I mean? I don't know, whatever. But it's I couldn't say with any confidence. So
yeah, and I just want to kind of backtrack a little bit, but in terms of kind of you getting into music, obviously the bands you're doing now, as we've kind of already addressed, aren't necessarily in that hardcore world.
Mm-hmm.
But had you previously done hardcore bands? Had you done vocals in hardcore bands?
Yeah. So my first band was when I was in high school, and we didn't have a drum set, so we practiced on a cookie tin thing.
Okay.
But it sounded like guitarist really. I wanted to be Rob Fish from 108,
right? And
guitarist really wanted to be Dimebag. You know, and,
I mean that's a weird mix in itself,
but and then concurrent to when End of the Year was playing in Albany all the time, I was asked by sort of like, how would I put it, like kids from the middle of nowhere that were just like, hey, would you like to sing in our hardcore band? And I said, sure. And I showed up to their garage. I was a good like 6 years older than everybody, and I was just like, what's up, guys? And that was really fun. We did that for 2 years or so, and that was just a straight up hardcore band. It was due to the drummer is now a doctor, but he was at the time like a hair, like what do you call it, like hair in your eyes, like serial killer looking grind kid, you know. And he was a super talented grind drummer, but was kind of dumbing himself down to play hardcore. But what was so funny about that was that we played all the hillbilly shows, like all the shows that were really outside of Albany. And for a few years, if I was just in a few years after that band, if I was just in a grocery store somewhere in the middle of nowhere, just, you know, a guy with work boots on would come up and be like, "Oh, I love your fucking band, dude." I'd be like, we haven't played in like 4 years. What are you doing? But so those were both dyed in the wool hardcore acts. But the stuff that people know me from is, of course, largely not. Although I would argue that Self-Defense, starting as End of the Year, I would call a hardcore band.
Yeah.
But I was asked to be in a hardcore band again recently, and was talked out of it by my peers who were like, "You just got to give it to a young dude."
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, just like some 19-year-old woman's she'll do a better job than you will. I'd be like, all right, fuck it. But I would do one, but it's an odd thing, isn't it? You see older people try to put together hardcore acts.
Yeah.
And even if they're quite good, which is very rare, it's just, how could you ever get a young person to care?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like, fair or not fair. I won't use any names, but I spoke to a dude in a hardcore act that, you know, they were a hardcore act and then they went away and then they came back, and by any measure they're probably better now, but he was honest. He said, I just can't get anybody like I can't get,
nobody wants to.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I mean, so I don't know why Drug Church worked, because I certainly probably had gray hair when we started. You know, I don't know, but probably because people don't see it as a hardcore band.
Yeah. And something kind of linked into that I wanted to mention, because I'm always interested how people came across it, but the whole straight edge sort of aspect of your life. Myself being someone that is straight edge, I always am interested in how people discovered it. So without this sounding mean, you are a little bit older than me. So how did you kind of discover what straight edge was, and why did you sort of decide to go down that path?
So there was 2 straight edge kids at my high school, and they were cool. And I got along with them. I really liked them, and I wasn't like a person that was interested in drugs or alcohol, and then culturally fell in with straight edge. For me, when I became straight edge, it was just a word for a thing that I
already was.
Yeah, that was my operating model, to be honest. Like, that's and no disrespect to anybody that sees or uses straight edge as like kind of like a turn in their life, like you know, if it has some positive aspect for you, that's fantastic. But I've always found it a bit to be for me, it's, and again, this is likely just because it's my experience, but I find it to be a healthier approach if it is simply how you would have been behaving regardless. Now you just have a convenient name. Should anybody on the subway ask you, or you know, should anybody at a bar ask you if you really want to have that fucking conversation?
But I've had that so many times.
But yeah, I mean, you know what's interesting is I found a lot of people like, so in my professional life I find people that have never drank or drugged at all, and they don't know what straight edge is, and they're always quite successful, and I always think, damn, where did I fuck up? You know what I mean? Because it seems to have, you know, I've reflected on it quite a bit, and I think that for myself, I know this sounds totally insane. I understand that people don't relate to this because they see me yelling on a stage or whatever. I hate being the loud guy. I hate being the jerk off that like isn't in control of his emotions or his behavior, you know, like I'm not a guy who can ever get in his shouting match outside. You know what I mean? And that's what I think of when I think of a drunk person. I think of somebody that invades your personal space. I think of somebody that is almost like a baby in how much the current world revolves exclusively around them and their wants and needs. And I think of somebody who's fucking loud. And all of those things are so hyper repellent to me that I fucking just can't do it. You know what I mean? And there's also just, I used to talk in my sleep, and I would wake up with just terrible anxiety that I would say something fucked up. And I don't understand how anybody wants that experience. You know, like, oh, I don't recall. Did I say something terribly cruel? You know what I mean? Like, what? What do you mean you don't recall? It's a fucking nightmare. It's fucking scary. You might have divorced your wife in the middle of your fucking, like, what are you talking about? Don't remember. So I'm not big on don't remember. You know what I mean? I'm not big on that sort of loss of control.
I'm all good.
Okay, cool. I'm good. Carry on a little bit if you're happy for me to carry on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, in terms of kind of, you mentioned obviously Self Defense had an album out last year as well, and referencing your podcast, people made the joke that it was the year of Patrick sort of thing.
I'll take it. Nice. But I'd prefer a bigger year that has money and shit. But okay, all right.
But was it kind of a weird sort of situation for you to kind of be promoting 2 records, that were very different in scape, very different in sort of fan base, and what was kind of being picked up and obviously at the same time doing your own podcasts as well. Like, you're a very busy man. I want to get onto your comics as well in a moment, but was it kind of strange having to pull yourself in millions of different directions, or is that just the norm for you?
No, that's pretty normal, I think. I'm not very good at self-promotion anyway, you know what I mean? Which, maybe if somebody follows my social media or some shit and they think that because I talk all the time, that's the same as promotion all the time. It's really not. I'm not terribly... I don't even know how to properly promote a thing. You know what I mean? Any label I've dealt with will tell you I'm quite bad at it. The line into tacky is so it's a narrow path you walk.
Yeah.
And I hate to be tacky. So, but I might be more successful if I was fucking tacky as fuck. It seems to be a thing, you know. But so no, you know, shout out to the tacky people. But it's just hard for me. So, no, I did not find it that hard. I found it a touch frustrating because it kind of underlined a lot of things that you suspect, but you can't confirm until you have kind of as much as you can an apples to apples sort of release. So Drug Church got a ton of press.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people were people who knew self-defense quite well. And the first thing they would say when they called me was, "Oh, you know, hello, nice to meet you, blah blah." And I tried to get coverage on self-defense, but
they just kind of shunned it. Sort of.
Yeah, but my editor said, you know, and they just kept telling me there wasn't enough of a story, and I found that so fucking discouraging.
I mean, like, the story alone is the fact that you're one of the most prolific punk bands there is, but
I also think that inarguably we put out our best record last year, so I would think that would be enough. But to me, it was just, I thought about bands like guys who have been around far longer than me, like the Kinsellas, you know, like guys like that who, imagine being a Kinsella and putting out an Owen record or whatever the fuck record, they're in like 7 bands, whatever. Imagine putting out what you, undeniably, fuck you, like it's not just you who thinks it, undeniably it is your best effort.
Yeah.
But because you've put out 6 good records, nobody gives a fuck about your brilliant 7th. You know, that's like, to me, that's like quite an indictment of music journalism.
Yeah,
you know? Is that you, not you fellas, sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine.
But that you're just youth blood-sucking weirdo fucking half pedant fucking weirdos that like only are interested in what children want.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like, you know, I guess I always knew that, but I found it deeply discouraging that like, oh, because something seems new to you, even though Drug Church has been around quite some time, because this is new to you, it's worth writing about versus like it. To be honest, like I tend to look at my music career on a long, like I've never thought this record better be the one. It's never occurred to me. It's just I see it like an actual career where there's ups and downs, and sometimes people give a fuck about you, sometimes they don't. So I wasn't exactly heartbroken, but it did get me really thinking about cats older than me and what a fucking struggle it is to fucking get anybody to give a fuck about your fucking 4th record. You know, like I think about like I now understand why bands break up before they're like after the 3rd record. They're like, oh well, you know what I mean? Like, the expiration date on anybody writing about us has expired. We're good. You know what I mean? I guess we gotta fucking fuck ourselves. So I thought about that quite a bit. You know, and again, it is different with self-defense because we put out enough material that there's never that feeling of it's all riding on this. You know, which some bands really really suffer from, and we don't. So it's a little different. But I did recognize it for the first time in a real way. Like, oh, music press really is just a bunch of it's a bunch of fucking 35-year-olds clamoring around laptops to
looking for the cool new thing.
Yes, like and that's freaky. You know what I mean?
And just think in terms of, I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, but I've heard you say somewhere previously that self-defense was very much a kind of like a process band in the terms of the way that you write and record and things like that.
Yeah.
And comparatively, Drug Church is very structured in
much more a product band.
Yeah.
Much more.
So for you personally, where things on self-defense can get a bit weird, like timing's a bit strange, your vocals change left, right and centre, whereas Drug Church again is very structured. Do you prefer one over the other, or is it just a case of that you're now in self-defense mode, you're now in Drug Church mode?
More like that. This summer, was it summer? No, late fall. Went from a long time out with Drug Church to, just 5 or 6 days with self-defense, and I found I enjoyed them both so much for exactly what they are. Drug Church, I love, like when I love being tight, and when they change the set list, I'm like genuinely annoyed because I think that we are most fun when we are machine-like and perfect. I think that it's truly fun, right? For me, I don't know if it's fun for the audience, but it's fun for me to get as close to that as possible. My radius to that may vary from the other players, but getting close to perfect is really fun. Whereas self-defense, the looser it gets, the more edifying it is. The closer to the. I don't think I'm never worried about us derailing, but certainly you can find plenty sets where I'm lost. You can find plenty sets where I just dig my heels in on a part and just repeat it because it's what's appealing to me, and I love that too. So yeah, no, I don't particularly have a preference. They're both. I never really thought of myself as a musician, but in those respects, I kind of have come to see myself as one because I do really enjoy both aspects of being a musician. Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much of your time because your dinner's waiting for you, but I've got to quickly ask, how was the run with Candy?
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah. I can't wait for them to come over here finally.
It was fun. They're good. The also Regional Justice Center was on that, who are quite good as well. Those are the type of shows I'd like to do moving forward. Mixed bills. I guess self-defense doesn't have any fucking choice but mixed bills because I don't know what the fuck. The big issue our entire career is what do you put us on with. But yeah, they were really fun. First night, like half the show cleared out after Candy, and we were like, oh no, this is gonna be a rough fucking 5 days. But then it turned out that the next few shows there wasn't not that type of really any walkout. But like the first night we're like, oh, so this is what it's like to be the older act that takes out the young hot act, and which to be honest we knew and didn't have a problem with. Like I think that I don't think a band ever needs to accept anything except for this is. If there's nothing wrong with being the thing that you are, I don't understand why you fight it.
Yeah.
You understand? Like some of these acts that are far older than I am, far older than self-defense. Some of them really. They kind of either lean too hard into a nostalgia thing that I think is self-sabotaging, but maybe that's pure self-acceptance. I don't know. But the flip side is sometimes I think that if you see them secretly salty about how a younger act is doing or whatever, you gotta realize that
you've got to pass the torch at some point.
even if you don't look at it that way, that's probably true, yeah. But even if you don't look at it that way, look at your career like an actual, like your life.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna, anybody that is up right now who doesn't think that they're ever gonna be down is stupid. It's just stupid. Like, I got friends who are now wealthy, and it's like, yeah, but then the nephew gets cancer, or there's always like, life is just a bunch of fucking ups and downs. So like, I think it's odd when, like a friend of mine was in a metal act that was really, really big when he was a young man, and waning popularity since then. He's now in his 30s, and like, how long can you be a big act? It's not fucking easy, right? But like, if you weather that storm and you just continue to do the thing that appeals to you, hopefully, you can maintain a career. And maybe that's not like, at one point he was filling 2,000 caps and, then was filling 500 caps. And is that discouraging? I bet. But Korn played a fucking 1,400 cap not that long ago, and they used to fill stadiums.
Yeah.
So like, is Korn fucked for doing that? No, Korn's a band. Korn's a band. You know what I mean? Like, that's what being a band is. Like, I just wish that, like, I get discouraged for bands and for people when they just don't get that whatever you got now is gonna go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it.
Cool.
Maybe I'll come back if you're lucky.
How I like to round things off is to ask my guests what their favourite song is, but with a bit of a twist. And obviously you're in two bands, so you get 2 bites of the cherry. So what is your favourite song that you like to play live, and why? So if we have one from Self Defense and one from Drug Church.
Oh. So Self Defense has one particularly aggressive song that is just basically just a triplet that just never stops.
Yeah.
But it's a heavy one for us, and it's called "It's Not Good for the Man to Be Alone," and live it is just so fun to play because it is aggressive, it is loud, it is heavy, but there's no chorus, there's no effort to please. It's just like a rhythmic jerk off. You know what I mean? And I find that fun. I find that very fun. And then, so that's probably tied with maybe one of the ones that just lets me moan forever.
Yeah.
I sometimes think of how different my life would be if I was like Mike Patton level skilled, because I love to do different vocal stuff. I just only can do 2.
And Drug Church?
So it's not there yet. There's a song called Foam Pit on the LP, the Cheer, that I think is so fun as a song. I haven't gotten it perfect yet.
Right. Okay.
But when I do, I think that'll probably be a favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's probably right.
Pat, thank you very much for your time. Really
Thank you for
appreciate
your
it.
time.